Jeez, this is a long way just to get some milk. Man, I knew I shouldn't have made that illegal left a ways back. Whoa. Hello? Anyone here? Y'all wouldn't happen to have some milk, would you? Figures. Just my luck that I wind up looking for milk in the damn desert. Oh, lovely. Hello YouTube and welcome back to The Theory Crafters, the show that digs deep into the lore of Minecraft mods instead of keeping our heads in the sand. Last episode we covered the Harbinger, the mechanical wither built by a lumber company of all things. This video we want to follow the wind into the desert where we find a cursed pyramid. This mysterious wonder of the world holds within it a dinosaur skeleton, one that if were to reawaken would make its waker pay dearly. This is the ancient remnant, a skeleton of a Spinosaurid with a peculiar sphinx headdress. This small yet key detail makes us wonder, was this a pharaoh of sorts? If so, where did his people go? Find out in the chapters of this video as we try to answer these questions. However, before we get into the pyramid and its inhabitants, I wanted to say that only about 30% of people who watch our videos are actually subscribed. So if you enjoy this type of content and would like to see more of it, consider subscribing. I would also like to give a shout out to our channel members. We have Anita, Abigail, and Critics. Thank you all for supporting the channel, and stay tuned for some exciting plans in the future. Now, without further ado, let's put on our archaeology hat and begin dusting off the story of this pyramid. I'm sure you all are familiar with the Great Pyramids of Giza. They're only a wonder of the world after all. These monolithic structures were built around 2500 BC and were constructed as a tomb for 3 generations of Egyptian kings and queens. According to the Digital Giza project at Harvard, the pyramids were built for the king Khufu, his son Khafre, and Khufu's grandson Menkaure. Khufu reigned from the year 2551 BC to 2528 BC, which was about 23 years. Khafre reigned from 2520 BC to 2494, about 26 years, and Menkaure had the shortest reign of only 18 years from 2490 BC to 2472 BC. The largest pyramid was built for Khufu, and it rose to 147 meters tall, or about 482 feet when it was first constructed. It was originally built of polished limestone, so it shined and glimmered in the sun, symbolic of the pharaoh Khufu's divinity. However, today, thousands of years since its initial construction, erosion from Egypt's regular rainfalls has shaved off 10 meters from the top, so today it stands 137 meters or 449 feet tall. Now, the pyramid in Cataclysm is nowhere near this height, standing at a measly 45 meters at its base when comparing to the towering 137 meters of the Pyramid of Giza's height today. However, as Minecraft has a certain limit to the size of structures, this is to be expected. Similar to the site of the pyramids in Egypt, Cataclysm has a suggestion of 3 smaller pyramids at the front of the structure, a potential nod towards the 3 smaller pyramids built for the Egyptian queens at the time. Also similar to the pyramids in real life, there are plenty of chambers within the cursed pyramid, some of which are simple living spaces, but some are also tombs for other important figures in this world long past. Who these figures were, we might find out later, we might not. Stay tuned. The point is, the interior of the cursed pyramid is quite expansive and is ripe for picking apart key details of the history behind the structure. So, let's get into it, shall we? While today, the cursed pyramid is called, well, a cursed pyramid, part of me thinks that it might not have always been this way. Perhaps in its early days, the pyramid was a bustling desert community built as a centerpiece for an advancing civilization. Were these desert dwellers villagers? I'm not sure. I don't think I would be able to say in good conscience that these people were villagers, given that this pyramid was clearly built with heavy emphasis on dinosaur imagery. So, to try and answer the question of who lived in or around the pyramid, let's take a quick trip back to our speculations from our video on the Forlorn Hollows. Don't worry, there isn't some connected lore I'm trying to make because these mods exist separately from one another. I'm merely bringing up something I believe is relevant. Anyways, enough yapping. If you remember, in that video we speculated that because there were pig people in the Nether, there could potentially be mole people in the overworld. What if they were reptile people that lived in the deserts of the ancient world of Cataclysm? The reason why we want to call these reptile people as opposed to dinosaur people is because of the existence of one of the mini-bosses within the pyramid, the Wadjet. This skeleton creature is clearly that of a snake, and as far as I'm aware, snakes were definitely not dinosaurs. The Wadjet is actually a reference to real Egyptian mythology. Within Egyptian mythology, Wadjet is an Egyptian goddess, who within her story is a protector and guardian of Egyptian kings. Wadjet was a goddess of Lower Egypt, symbolized within her form as a cobra. She's often depicted alongside the goddess of Upper Egypt, Nekhbit, who talks on the form of a vulture. This harmony between Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt is representative of the king's reign of the entirety of Egypt. The second mini-boss of the Cursed Pyramid is known as the Cobblediator. While its form is unclear, though it is likely a hybrid of other creatures or even entirely made up, its design can help us deduce what it might have been in life. Given the name Cobblediator, it is likely that it is simply a far stronger version of the common Cobeleton, as we will discuss in a moment. In real life, ancient Egypt did not have a form of gladiators as it was later normalized by the Romans, and nor do I believe that Cataclysm Cursed Pyramid practiced gladiatorial combat. This is simply because I failed to find any room within the Cursed Pyramid that could have been used as an arena apart from the throne room itself. Instead, I believe that the Cobblediator was almost supposed to be a guard, or a form of authority within the staircase of power within this reptile civilization. The Cobblediator is important within our theory of a reptile civilization due to the fact that once it is slain, its skull is an important construction material to create the bone reptile armor set. Though Cobeleton is a common folk of the Cursed Pyramid, their design resembles that of small creatures called kobolds, which is in Dungeons & Dragons, and they carry what is called a khopesh. Khopeshes were an Egyptian weapon that is sickle-shaped, making it a perfect weapon for slashing and cutting enemies. The sickle shape allowed it to hook, pull, and tear away flesh or even the weapons of the adversary. In Cataclysm, this weapon can be used to disarm an opponent, a quite frustrating attack to deal with when fighting your way through the Cursed Pyramid. With their proficiency in using their weapon, one can assume that the Cobeletons could have made up the pharaoh's militia. However, this leaves a question. If the Wadjet and Remnant are the gods, the Cobblediator is a guard, and the Cobeletons are the army, what happened to just the regular people? Unfortunately, this question will remain unanswered, but it could be simply that the people were left buried in the sand. Potentially, they could have built the desert wells and even the desert pyramids we see still standing today, though this is simply speculation. What do you think happened to them?
Hi, I'm TV. If you're wondering where CMC went, I have no clue. I think he went to go get the milk, so let's just hope he'll be back soon. Anyways, the pyramid itself has an interesting variety of rooms and corridors, all filled with the details of what life was like in this time. Before the pyramid became overrun with the skeletons of guards and army men, the pyramid could have been used as a zone where one could study, learn, mourn, worship, or anything under the sun. By far, the most common block you will find, apart from sandstone and its variants, are chiseled bookshelves. These bookshelves are sparsely filled with books we can no longer read, perhaps because the language is that of a now dead tongue. Alongside the chiseled bookshelves, there are also some totems of other potential gods of the Cobbleton people, as depicted by this block with a face on it, though it is actually a cleverly designed poison dart trap. Speaking of traps, around the pyramid are flame traps and even loose ground traps, so watch where you're stepping. As mentioned before, there were also some tombs for figures of lesser status. Within the pyramid, one can find a couple of sarcophagi holding within them a chest full of rotten flesh or bones. While they aren't as important to society as the kings or queens, they certainly had some sort of relevancy to warrant a tomb within the pyramid. While there are these sort of lesser burials within the pyramid, this doesn't mean that people of higher status weren't laid to rest inside the pyramid as well. This tomb is likely that of 2 or even 3 important figures in society, whoever that may be. It is also important to mention that alongside every tomb within the Cursed Pyramid is a pot, with several different pottery shards. While we talk about the other types of shards in a moment, this pot showcases the mourner pottery shard, meaning that the reptile people mourned their lost people. Archaeology was a big part of Minecraft's 1.20 update, and it is used to great effect here in the Cursed Pyramid. Alongside the use of suspicious sand and whatnot decorated pots that litter the walls, shelves, and floors of the pyramid. The pots are decorated with 4 pottery shards. The mourner pottery shard the Arms Up pottery shard, and the Danger pottery shard, and finally the Snort pottery shard. All of these paint a particularly interesting picture of the culture of these people. One can argue that the three shards, Danger, Arms Up, and Mourner, tell one cohesive narrative. What if it tells the very simple story of an army seeing danger and deciding to arm up for the danger? Because the shard depicts a creeper, it is reasonable to assume that perhaps creepers were seen around the perimeter of the pyramid. The army went out to fight the creepers to protect the pyramid, but because creepers are highly explosive and dangerous, some would inevitably lose their lives. Among the casualties could have been a person of high stature, beloved by the reptile people, and then upon seeing the death of this person, they carried its body back into the pyramid and buried it in one of the sarcophagi we see in the pyramid. And this event was documented on a pot using the Mourner pottery shard. Now, the Snort pottery shard is a bit of an outlier here. Obviously, the shard depicts a sniffer, also included within the 1.20 update. The sniffer is an ancient mob, according to Lady Agnes, the vanilla game director of Minecraft. An ancient mob? It's almost like the dinosaur reptile creatures like we see in the Cobbletons. I believe that while the sniffer has been extinct from the natural world, excluding the eggs we see of course, for a while now, it might not have been extinct during the time of when the pyramid was in its glory days, and could have very well been used for agricultural or other means. It might have been so integral to the reptile people that they might have wanted to share this wonder with other civilizations. They could have traded excess sniffer eggs with neighboring sea civilizations. And while the world may have ended their societies by drowning them into what becomes the warm ocean ruins we see in Minecraft today, their sniffer eggs remain buried alongside them within the suspicious sand. Now, within the central chamber, falling down into the arena, there are 3 other corridors inside the walls of that chamber. While 2 of them contain suspicious sand containing the necklace of the desert, which is necessary for reawakening the ancient remnant. The third one has a rather odd depiction of something some may find familiar. This is clearly some sort of fish creature, and the signs read Spinoferus. This is likely an Easter egg towards the difficulty of accurately reconstructing the Spinosaurus from its skeleton. It is meant as a joke and is part of a speculative evolution of the Spinosaurus, trying to answer the question if Spinosaurus was entirely an aquatic creature. Lastly, within the boss arena itself are a number of statues honoring the ancient remnant. If you travel down to the arena, you will see plenty of statues built to look like Spinosaurid skeletons, all created in the image of the ancient remnant. Integrated into the walls are depictions of the Spinosaur, built out of red sandstone to stand out against normal sandstone. This place is where we find the ancient remnant laying dormant, awaiting a brave adventurer to reawaken it using the necklace of the desert. To avoid anyone trying to simply kill it in its sleep, the remnant is guarded by a Wadjet and a Cobbledator. I can't say that word. About to say cobbler. Gobbler? Anyways, the former of which we already discussed, its purpose of protecting the king. But who was the ancient remnant? What was he like in life? I don't think the ancient remnant...
What are you doing here?
What? I'm sorry. Okay.
I don't think the ancient remnant was always a skeleton. While in the front of the pyramid, the caricature of the remnant is clearly skeletal in nature, the hieroglyph within the arena seems to be more full. If the reptile people used to have skin, why couldn't the remnant as well? In real life, the Spinosaurus dinosaur actually lived in Egypt, so we could speculate that the remnant could have been a highly intelligent Spinosaurus that found its way into the desert. The desert was a harsh, brutal environment, but this particular Spinosaurus, let's call him Set, as it means god of chaos and the desert, saw something in it. Set envisioned a glorious civilization, one hardened by the desert, making them the perfect protectors of the divine nature of the desert. With an army hardened, it would almost certainly be beneficial should any conflict arise. Set ordered the construction of an enormous pyramid, one tall enough to reach the gods themselves. Workers constructed them under the guise that Set had a direct line of communication to the gods. Set promised to the people great prosperity if he sees a pyramid built for him and for them. Decades passed, and the pyramid finally finished construction. To make good on his promise, Set was given the necklace of the desert created by religious officials themselves, serving as almost a phone to the gods. When he was bestowed this necklace, he asked the gods for the prosperity of the people, and the gods delivered. The gods came down themselves, and within an instant water flowed, trees took root, and food was more than abundant. The people thrived in the desert for centuries. They advanced their technology and enhanced their quality of life further. They discovered agriculture. They discovered love and peace. Set was renowned for his success as a king and ruled for hundreds of years. However, when Set was given his immense power, slowly but surely he let it go to his head. He began making more outlandish decisions and even began thinking that he was the sole reason for the success of the desert civilization. He began to give himself the full credit of getting his reptile people out of their unfortunate circumstances. Set even challenged the gods once, claiming that he and he alone had the power to grant anything in any situation. The gods, as you can imagine, did not take too kindly to their credit being stolen, and had to punish Set for his outrageous claims. They sent down plagues among the people. First, their rivers ran dry, and their plants died out. Their livestock was not able to be fed, and they died as a result. Next, intense sandstorms ran through the area, further uprooting any potentially standing trees until the buildings were covered with sand and buried deep into the ground. Seeing the devastation, Set grew furious with the gods for letting this happen. He cursed them and wished upon their downfall, to which the gods used all of their combined power to punish Set for his arrogance. This curse was that all of what made him and his people who they were would be stripped away from them, their achievements, their status, and even their own bodies. The gods took away their skin and their organs, leaving only skeletons in their wake. However, to further punish them, they would be given the breath of life inside their skeletons, forcing them to go every day as a husk of what they used to be. When the gods bestowed upon them this curse, they were forced to lose what made them their own people. To forget who you are, well, that might be the worst curse of them all. This finally turned the pyramid and its divinity into the cursed pyramid we see today. Set could not take this punishment and wished to be released of this godly possession. He realized that the necklace around his neck carried the influence of the gods over him within it, and tried to remove it. Eventually, he succeeded and tore it off of his neck while sitting in his now empty throne room. When the necklace was removed, his life faded and he went into a deep dormancy. This is why he is known as an ancient remnant. All that remains of who he was is within his bones, forever gathering dust until you decide to reintroduce the power of the gods into his body. This action he will not take kindly, and attack you with all his might for cursing him once again. The story of the ancient remnant and its cursed pyramid is immensely intriguing. Unlike the ancient factory we covered last, the pyramid gives us more insight into the day-to-day life that occurred in their history, from their response to conflicts written within their pottery to their eventual demise as a civilization due to a caring king turned arrogant. This has actually been one of the most fun videos to write, as I am a huge sucker for ancient history. Uncovering the stories that people who lived thousands of years before told throughout the generations is immensely enjoyable to read and to learn about. It's very cool. However, this story must come to an end. Next video, you can expect us to go into the frozen tundras of Minecraft, where we discover a frosted prison. This place is overrun with many creatures resembling decrepit prisoners from Norse mythology, but dig deep enough and we find the haunted tombstone of Maledictus. Why is he there? How did he die there? Find out in that video, but for now, I will catch you all next time. Wait! Before you go, be sure to check out our last video on the Harbinger, our former series on Alex's Caves, and the latest edition of Cooking with Piam. Go show her some love!